to welcome the Minister of Mines and Energy, Diego Mesa Puyo, economist of the University of Concordia, Panama. He has a master's degree in economics of the University of McGill in Canada, and he holds a title of CFA of the CFAA Institute of the United States since 2012. He has more than 15 years of experience in leadership roles in multilateral entities, in the private sector, and in the government. He has worked as Vice Minister of Energy of Colombia Economies and an expert in the Department of Fiscal Policy of IMF, manager and senior economist of Price Waterhouse in Alberta, British Columbia, Canada. You have the floor. Thank you very much, Claudia. Good morning to each and every one of you, to all those that have joined this annual Acolgen Congress, its 13th Congress. It is an honor to open this Congress and to share with you all the progress when it comes to energy transition in the country, where the Acolgen companies are really the protagonists of this energy transition, which is a legacy for the present and the future of Colombia. Before starting the presentation, we want to see how are we doing with respect to energy transition, which are the new projects, what's coming up for the next months of this administration, which is the roadmap that we are going to have for the future. I want to take this opportunity to mention the effects that we have had because of all the social problems that we have had. We need to be aware of all the social impacts, and when it comes to employment, to food supply, to social aspects that have been the result of all these criminal roadblocks, which are not peaceful protests. The sector has always been positioned in order to be one of the sectors of the reactivation. We know that Colombia, as the rest of the world, after facing the first 12 months of this pandemic, which it forced us to make important investments in the health sector, and it forced us to start social programs in order to serve the most vulnerable population. And we had focused that 2021 was going to be the year of the economic reactivation. After 3 quarters of negative economic growth, the first quarter of 2021 resulted in many expectations. Some analysts said that negative growth was going to continue during the first quarter. Others, such as Fede Desarrollo, were saying that the Colombian economy was going to grow 6.6% during the first 3 months of the year. However, the real figures were more encouraging. During the first quarter, we doubled the DANI figures, and this was very positive for the country's productive sector, for all of Colombians, because we saw how the economy had been very resilient, and we were also starting to deploy these economic activities throughout the country. And the energy sector had important projects that were part of the commitment for Colombia, which was launched by President on July last year, 35 billion pesos in investment for the next 2 years, the possibility of creating an important number of jobs and investment in the power sector, generation, transmission, hydrocarbon, mining, in order to continue with that economic reactivation. Sadly enough, the protest, we were always encouraging peaceful protest, but then we had those criminal acts, roadblocks, which have affected the country. And sadly enough, this has delayed the foreseen economic reactivation. And the energy sector has also been affected by this, mainly when it comes to fuel supply, when it comes to hydrocarbon production, oil and gas in the refinery sector, where we have stopped producing 1.8 million barrels, and we have And we have not received 450 billion pesos, which were part of the plan, and that this has affected foreign direct investment, the balance of trade, royalties. But in spite of this, we are continue with the decision of focusing during the second half of the year in this economic reactivation. We see that international analysts are foreseeing an economic growth above 5 and 6%. So we have to make sure that the energy sector and that the energy transition will be a protagonist. I would like to start by telling you what's happening now, and also I want to speak about the economic reactivation process, a sustainable recovery, and the position of the transition in the country, and where are we heading to. The first thing I would like to say is that it has been extremely important to count on the participation of the private sector hand in hand with generation companies, because they are all on board this process of energy transition. You are aware that since this administration started, we created a very appealing fiscal framework so that generation and self-generation and energy licensing projects will be attractive for private investment. And this was supplemented by an auction program where we included innovation when it comes to public policy. And we had that first successful auction in 2019. And as I said, it has been very important that those companies that are not from the sector have entered into alliances with sectors company in order to continue with the energy transition. It is worth highlighting the Group Colombina, and here we see the slides how last year they were able to commission a generation project in Santander de Quilichao with 5,000 panels that are going to provide 20% of the energy consumption per year of this plant, with an important reduction of more than 1,000 tons of CO2. We saw also the previous slides, Pétalos de Córdoba. This is a project that started in Planeta Rica, and the Éxito group is participating in this in order to create the first centralized operational project to provide air conditioner energy of more than 27 shops of this group in the country. This is a reliable, competitive energy. That is what we are aiming at. In the case of Grupo Éxito, this is a plant with of 10 megawatts of installed capacity and the capacity of reducing in 6,500 tons of CO2. This or that type of project that have supplemented the auction projects, reliability charge, long-term contracts, and all these contracts that we've had in a bilateral way. This has enabled to position Colombia. And we can say today that this energy transition is indeed a reality. And today we have projects that are going to be commissioned in the next 6 to 12 months, and we are going to overcome the initial target of 1,000 megawatts of installed capacity. And by the end of 2022, we are going to exceed 2,500 megawatts. This is an important milestone. By the end of 2021, we're going to have the commissioning of the first wind energy park. Isagen, with the project Guajira 1, is going to be the pioneer of wind parks to be built in the country in the coming years. And we are going to see 2 or 3 additional parks in the first quarters of 2022. Here you see the projects that we have, and they were allocated in the auction of 2019, and by 2022 we are going to be able to attain that 12 to 14% of participation in renewable energy in the matrix, supplementing the matrix that we have, which is one of the cleanest ones in the planet. Obviously, with an important generation base, the power sector, and also supplemented by the thermal sector. It is important to talk about investment, more than 8 trillion Colombian pesos in investment for the auctions and the capacity of creating more than 6,000 direct jobs during the construction stage. And as you all know, and as we just announced last week, we have 2 or 3 additional pathways to continue consolidating this energy transition process. First, we have the first non-conventional renewable energy auction. The invitation was launched last week, and we hope to award these contracts in October 2021. It is worth mentioning one of the main characteristics. We are going to have the participation of non-conventional renewable energy of more than 5 megawatts of installed capacity, minimum of phase 2 in the UPME projects, and also projects that already have the reliability charge can participate in the long-term auction, provided they present offers from 5 o'clock in the afternoon to midnight. These are projects that need to comply with energy delivery in January 2023, because these are projects that are going to help the country's economic recovery. But understanding the circumstances, we are going to have a buffer of around 2 years without executing the guarantee, provided they comply with those obligations. And here it is also worth mentioning that we are opening a great opportunity for non-regulated market users. That's 30% of the national demand, and they can use the potential of all these projects that are going to be participating on the side of generation in this auction. And to close the auction, related point that last week UPME published the status of the certificates being issued for generation of unconventional renewable energy and for energy transition. And all the certificates that have been issued up to now, with the cut May 31st this year, we have certificates equivalent to investments for over 6 trillion Colombian pesos. Since this administration started, UPME has increased the issuance of those certificates in 185%. And since the administration started, this is of around 800 certificates for generation projects and more than 300 certificates for energy efficiency. And I think that that is very important, because we have to think about the other applications within the transition. And there is quite an opportunity for the country now, and it's the storage, the large-scale energy storage projects. And I want to highlight one of the most important projects. This is one that we inaugurated early this year, and it is the project that we see on the video. And it is the battery for large-scale storage in the Tegucigalpa plant, and that is part of the portfolio in LNG, and this enables to increase the generation capacity of this plant. It has a storage of 7 megawatts power and more than 3.9 megawatts per hour of energy, and this enables to enlarge the plant's capacity, and this is going to be reflected in other type of operations in this sector in the coming months, and this is going to allow for that incremental energy capacity is very important for electricity generation. It's a useful life of 15 years, and the investment was of $6 million. And this leads us to the next milestone for this year when it comes to transition, and that is the first Latin American auction for a storage system with large-scale batteries. This is going to take place in the country, and it is being led by the Mining Energy Commission. One of the relevant characteristics that this is storage to support the power sector, the energy sector in the Department of Atlántico, an installed capacity of 50 megawatts. And it should be commissioned before June 2023 to support the grid that has affected the Caribbean coast. And this is going to really help in the region, and we believe that these type of invitations to participate are going to be copied in coming months. So right now we are considering different applications, not only the supplement to support the grid, but thinking that with a new unconventional renewable energy projects, they can get support in this type of solutions and mechanisms that could really back up the system for this line of renewable energy.
And speaking of these new technologies and new energy sources, I would like to take this opportunity now to mention another important milestone that already occurred this year. We started the first pilot project for geothermal power, another unconventional renewable energy that is coming into the country to be developed at a large scale. This will come to supplement all the wind and solar projects and biomass projects that we have been having in the last few months. And regarding this project, I must say it is important. There was the participation of three parties: the private sector, the government through the Ministry of Mines and Energy, and the academia through the National University of Medellin, the private sector with the Parex company. This project so far with a limited capacity, but it's the first step towards geothermal energy generation. And this will not be the first pilot that we will see. The company is working on a second project in an oil area. It'll be commissioned before 2021 ends. And several projects are also being put into motion in the Department of Meta, so that this will be yet another energy source that the country will have in the years to come. And besides geothermal energy, we have two big bets. We have hydrogen on the one hand, which has been positioned as one of the energies of the future, with very important support from developed economies that want to identify already what will be the main suppliers of this type of energy into their countries. That's why we're working on the roadmap for hydrogen for the next 30 years. We are making an assessment of competitiveness for these source of energy generation, identifying what will be the potential markets, both foreign and domestic, and we will also be planning to have partnerships with the German government and German companies that have shown great interest in having this type of generation in Colombia. Last week, we had a meeting with BDI, which is the equivalent to ANDI in Germany, and hopefully we will be enabling in these preparatory work a few pilots to be started in the first semester of next year. We know that companies are already getting ready to start producing green hydrogen in the country. And of course, we want to bet on the blue hydrogen where we believe to have a great potential. In terms of unconventional renewable energies, we have been working also on enabling, from a regulatory point of view, the roadmap for the development of offshore wind energy or wind power. We're working together with the World Bank on this, and I must mention the partnership with the Danish government that will be transferring knowledge and will allow us to deploy part of what has been done in this country, which is a pioneer in terms of offshore wind power. And to wrap up the generation topic, I must mention also what has been done in terms of gas, which supplements the projects that are being developed and that will complement the energy matrix. One of the main concerns that we've had is to seek to guarantee an ongoing supply of gas for the country, both for the generation farm and for industrial and commercial and residential areas. Hence the importance of mentioning the regasification plant of the Pacific that, together with all the other projects in gas supply. It includes a gas pipeline from the port of Buenaventura to Jumbo. We're talking about investments of about $800 million for this region of the country, which needs investments of this type to continue its economic development. And at last, to wrap up energy transition, I'll be closing with some topics regarding climate change. Let me focus on mobility first of all. And this supplements very well what we want to see about the country's energy matrix, and that we are unquestionably a leader in Latin America with very important numbers there. In 2019, 6 months after having passed the law of electric mobility, Colombia in 2019 positioned itself ahead of the main countries, Argentina, Chile, regarding the number of electric vehicles. And in 2020, in spite of the pandemic, we experienced important growth, more than 90% vis-a-vis 2019. But that growth has been speeding up in 2021. After that exponential growth in 2020, in the first 5 months of 2021, we experienced a growth of more than 240% with the sale of electric vehicles and hybrid vehicles. This slide is a little behind. It doesn't include May, which would include an additional 4,700 electric vehicles, with which we would be reaching 10,000 hybrid and electric vehicles sold by the end of 2021. For you to have a general idea, the goal of the development plan for this 4-year period was 2,600. So we are by far exceeding it. The goal is to reach 600,000 vehicles. And of course, this will be supplemented with all the other sustainable mobility efforts, as is vehicle natural gas or LPG, and new stations will be opened for these energy sources this year. So this sale of individual vehicles is complemented also with heavy-duty transportation, and the private sector here is becoming very important. In February, we visited the plant that Bavaria has in Tocancipá, and we saw the first heavy-duty electric trucks. The first 20 started to move in February, and they hope to complete their fleet with 200 vehicles by the end of the year. So we see that mass electric transportation is growing massively by using these systems in Medellin, Cali, and of course in Bogotá in the Transmillennium system, where we're reaching already, or we're having the second biggest electric fleet in the world after China. It's important to mention that in intermediate cities, we're seeing this type of technologies. At the beginning of the year, we went to Córdoba, Puerto Libertador, and the Cerro Matoso company started an electric fleet to move move all their workers between the mine and their place of residence. So with this, let me just say that we are fully in sync with what we have been preaching in terms of climate change and the reduction of CO2 emissions, which brings me to my last point. This sector, thanks to all the companies that are part of Acolgen and that already signed their partnership for carbon neutrality, shows us that we are meeting the goal that we had for climate change management, having the implementation of this plan in place, where hopefully we will be reducing the CO2 emissions by 11.2 million, which has allowed us to publish a virtual guide on this topic. The Ministry of Mines has been setting an example. We have our own project of self-generation with solar panels, and we also have a purchase of carbon bonds with a project of reforestation in the area of Vichada, which allows us to say today that we are a carbon neutral ministry. Just to underline what I was mentioning regarding the partnership regarding carbon neutrality in the electric sector, that partnership was signed at the Ministry of Mines and Energy, and on a voluntary basis, AS Colombia, Celsia, Enel, EPM, ISA, Intercolombia, Transelca, and URA joined in. So our idea is that more and more companies will join us in order to expand the coverage to a maximum that will allow us to lead at a sector level and through all the different Colombian businesses and companies. So let me just say, after all this, that after leaving behind such difficult moments, like the ones that I mentioned at the beginning of my talk, let's not forget that this sector, the power sector, the energy sector, is one of the most resilient sectors. It's a sector that is able to turn crises into opportunities, and it is those opportunities that have allowed us to go through a pathway of ongoing evolution. I want to invite you to continue building this story of energy transition in this sector. And as I said at the beginning, this is the legacy for the present times and the future times of Colombia. Thank you very much. Thank you, Minister Diego Mesa Puyo. It is very true. Everything that you've said is completely online with what Acolgen considers should be done so that Colombia will continue being a reliable country in terms of power generation. Our country is #1 in the region in terms of reliability, and all these projects that the minister referred to in terms of energy transition, such as the storage of batteries and the auctions for unconventional energies, everything that he shared regarding the importance of this coordinated work between the public and the private sectors, that's fundamental for Colombia to continue moving up in its ladder in energy transition. Let's remember that Colombia at present is number 25 out of 115 countries assessed by the World Economic Forum in terms of energy transition. So, Minister, it's been a pleasure to hear you. And for the 14 companies of Acolgen, we welcome all those projects that you referred to, because as you said, in spite of the difficult moments that the country is experiencing, in spite of that, the power sector has been delivering and has been giving the country an ongoing supply, and it has to continue being a leader in the country's economic development. So our thanks again, Minister. I'll give the word now to the President of the Board of Directors, Dr. Amaya from URA, who has general studies in administrative and technical and financial areas in the direction and commercialization of powers. She also has expertise and skills in marketing and trading of high investment products. Has been a consultant and an advisor in the design of strategies and policies related to financial development, commercialization of high investment products, commercialization of electric power and fuels, among others. He has expertise studies as an electric engineer in the Atlantic Coast and Corelca, and Energía Confiable, Cementos del Caribe, and Carvajal. In the commercial area of URA, he's the leader of the human teams in the areas of energy and marketing and new generation projects. Dr. Amaya, you have the floor. Thank you. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. President of Colombia, Dr. Iván Duque Márquez, Minister of Mines and Energy, Diego Mesa Puyo, Head of the CREG, Jorge Valencia, Director of UBME, Cristian Jaramillo, members of the national government, speakers, congressmen of Colombia, members of the National Council, representatives of the academia, members of the Board of Directors of Acolgen, Executive President of Acolgen, Natalia Gutierrez, and collaborators of the associated Acolgen companies, journalists from the different media, and the audience in general. Let me welcome you to the 13th Annual Congress of Power of the Colombian Association of Power Generation, Acolgen. We will have a very important academic agenda throughout these 2 days with very important speakers that will enrich the discussions and analyses on the topics that concern the sector. The electric sector has been fundamental for the country's sustainable development, being now one of the fundamental backbones for the reactivation of our economy because it is responsible of an important part of job generation, well-being, and development throughout the country. Since our generation projects also include investments in infrastructure and in many cases contributions to the local population in terms of housing, education, and food, among others. Power generation companies have never stopped their activities. Since the pandemic began, we have been supplying uninterrupted service throughout the country, guaranteeing the protection of our collaborators and the well-being of the Colombian people. Our work will not stop, and we will continue working with our commitment to Colombia. We have a reliable power system that has made it possible for the country not to lack any electricity in the last 20 years. And if we take into account the process of incorporation of new generation sources, it becomes even more important. We're looking for a diversified matrix, and in this sense, Colombia has important opportunities in the development of renewable energies. That's why we have a clean, sustainable matrix where 70% comes from renewable energies, mainly water. So this puts us in a privileged position and makes us an example worldwide. Regarding energy transition and the incorporation of other generation sources, low-emission sources, as is the case of solar and wind energies, the country has a chance to continue holding its position at regional and world level. In 2020, Colombia moved up 9 positions in the index of energy transition in the World Economic Forum, becoming country number 25 out of 115 countries. In Acolgen, we want to express our support to the national government in their search to contribute so that the Colombian electric sector will continue being a reference regionally and in the world in terms of reliability and sustainability. Our companies are committed to the consolidation of a sector that, as it's been the case so far, will promote actions to promote the environment and community development throughout Colombia. Likewise, we support this process of energy transition that has been developed for a couple of years, where, as a public policy, seeks better dynamics that will contribute to the energy sector and the development of the country. We must underline that our companies account for 83% of the power projects with low emissions assigned in the auctions of the year 2019, a significant figure which just goes to show very clearly the importance of renewable energies in our association. The future of energy in the country, as is the case of many other countries, will be marked by energy transition. The changing society in which we live and the new challenges that we have to face today, being climate change the most important of them all, calls for a real transformation of the sector that will make it possible to reach sustainable development and the country's decarbonization while maintaining a first-quality service. is of great efficiency. In 2020, looking at the juncture that we are experiencing globally, as an association, we decided to devote the resources of this event to help foundations throughout Colombia with the payment of their electric bills. In partnership with Caracol Radio, we supported more than 50 foundations from 13 geographic departments and municipalities with a positive impact on the well-being of more than 104,000 people, which helped contribute to their well-being in the midst of this important juncture. Finally, out of the Colombian Association of Electric Power Generators, we want to express our support to the national government, given the current situation that has so seriously damaged our economy and our country. In the framework of this annual Congress, we seek this to be a space for discussion, looking at building the model future for the power sector of Colombia. So I just want to extend my welcome to all of you.